So we are here with John Bush of Armored Saint.
Hello, everybody.
Now, things are extremely active on the Armored Saint front lately. How come?
Well,
I mean, you're very visible in the studio and on stage.
yeah, well, we put a record out in 2015, Win Hands Down. We were real proud of it. We think it's a killer album. We did probably the most touring we've done since we kind of regrouped, maybe, if you want to go back to Revelation in 2000. We didn't do much touring on La Raza, which came out in 2010. It just felt like the time to do more shows. We've been to Europe, we finally got to South America, finally got to Japan, we had never been there. Certainly have done a lot of touring in the US. This is our third time, I think, fourth time in Chicago in the last, let's see, we played Queensryche, Sax. This is over our fourth time since Win Hands Down came out in 2015. So, yeah, it's a great city. Of course, we love being here, and it's fun playing shows.
When it comes to touring, what is easier nowadays?
What is easier?
Yeah, I mean, you've been a touring band for the last 30 some years, so.
Well, we need a bus. We don't want to do it in a van unless we're doing like just a couple of shows. We need a crew. There's some mice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we want to be. Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
We are in a restaurant bar, so you know, we want to be as comfortable as we can. Obviously, we have a budget, and we're not some giant band. We're playing clubs, and we're pretty straight up about our popularity and where we belong and where we play. But we would like to be as comfortable as possible. This tour, with the Symbol of Salvation and playing in its entirety as we're doing. We're playing almost 2 hours every night. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. So for us, that's probably the longest we've ever been on stage as a band. And so you got to get a lot of rest. So you have to have the best accommodations. I think that's probably the most important thing, really. It's just having a bus.
Let's flip a coin and talk about what is a challenge in 2018.
Well, this is a challenge, doing a record that we put out in 1991 and doing it as a whole thing, and like I said, it's an entirety. Songs that we wrote in the 80s, basically, most of them. Certainly, I was 26 years old when I originally sang them. Now I'm 54, so it was a long time ago. So vocally it's challenging, musically it's challenging. Playing songs that we never played before. There's at least several, if not more, that we never played prior to this tour.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah, so which is great though. It's super fresh and exciting and lots of fun. And playing this record is just awesome. We've had a blast. So, but I think just going out, giving your all, being tight, being convincing, sounding good, singing good. Those are all the challenges that we're facing now.
And speaking vocally, how do you maintain your voice? I mean, you still sound perfect.
Well, I don't know
on
about
stage
perfect,
and live,
hardly
but
probably perfect. But
well, you managed to fool a lot of people.
Hey, that's part of the game. No, you know, I'm just trying to take better care of myself as a person. You know, it's certainly much harder when you're older. Although I'm much more comfortable in how I'm singing than I probably ever was. So I think that's important. But yeah, you know, minimize the alcohol. I haven't drank one thing on this tour. Minimize the coffee, which is a bummer. It's pissing me off. Watch what you eat. Try to get a lot of sleep. Take care of your voice. You know, don't talk too much unless I'm doing interviews. I was invited to a Cubs game today, but I just probably thought that was a bad idea. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I wanted to go, but I just think outside, possible rain, talking all through the game,
It wears you
it's
out.
probably not a good idea.
I know it does. Is there any new music being written?
Yeah, we've written almost half a dozen songs. Still working on them, you know, kind of in demo form. Sounding great. You know, Win Hands Down, we think we set the bar really high. We think it's one of our best albums. So we need to at least have the mindset that we want to surpass that. That will be a tall order, but at least that's the goal. So I think Armored Saint, it's always been more about quality than the quantity and the urgency. You know, although of course we're not getting any younger, so we kind of, can't just kind of lollygag around. But again, when you're all dead and gone, I think it's what's going to be remembered is these records. You know, how good are they? Do they stand the test of time? Those kind of things.
Now, this tour is unlike any other tour you've done. It's celebrating a specific release. Who initiated the idea?
I think it was Joey's wife Tracy, actually, who's the head of the label. We wanted to bridge the last record to a new record, and sometimes you put little things out to do that. We already put out a live record, Carpe Noctem, that came out in 2017, the beginning, so we couldn't do another live record. But the thing we've never really done is a proper DVD, professional footage and stuff. So we said, why don't we do that, and that'll kind of help us, just keep us in the limelight to some degree. And then Tracy had the idea, well, why don't you do Symbol as a whole record and film that? And we were like, well, that's a great idea. So we just we ran with that.
What kind of a feedback are you getting from playing this album live?
I think we're getting awesome response. People are very excited. It's an interesting record. There's a lot of nooks and crannies, and there's different vibes on the record. It's not just a thumping, thrashing record throughout. There's a lot of different moods, and I think it's showing that live, which is cool and also kind of challenging because, again, it's not just a headbanging extravaganza. There's a lot of different vibes throughout the show because there is on the record. So it's been great.
Now, even when you originally toured for the Symbol of Salvation back in 1991, and you played Chances Are in Palatine.
Right,
If you remember
okay,
that,
I
I was
remember
there.
that. Had the PA only on one side.
You only did a handful of songs from that album. Now you're doing the whole thing. Any surprises, especially from the songs that you never played before?
Yeah, the Spineless is a really cool song. We should have been playing it for years, actually. The Truth Always Hurts seems like a song that's just really, really fun to play live. Another Day is pretty emotional. Certainly we have the tribal dances and the Last Train Homes, and those are the songs we've played for years. But Symbol of Salvation. But Hanging Judge, Burning Question, we never played those songs, so it's real fresh.
So let's talk about Symbol of Salvation. Want to show the album?
Oh, this is the European version, I believe, originally. No, this
that's
is a
the deluxe.
reissue.
We'll get to that one later.
Yeah,
but
and this is the
that's
original.
what started it.
Yeah.
How would you describe the time in which this album was written?
In the time?
Yeah.
Well, it started probably shortly after we finished touring for Raising Fear, around the end of, or the middle part of '88. Started writing, and then we started recording the record at the end of '90, maybe. Came out, I think, May of '91. So during that period of time. But of course, remember Dave was with us, Dave Pritchard, and he wrote a lot of the songs on this album. And there was a time when we were just the four of us, and then Jeff came in the band. He joined the band, and Jeff kind of left the band. So Jeff was part of some of the writing. And then once Dave passed on, we got Phil back, and then we did write a couple more songs. Truth Always Hurts was the last song we wrote for this record.
When you listen back or play it back now, how do you feel about this material now?
I think it's great. I think it's a really great Armored Saint record. Maybe one of the most important records that we've ever made. Certainly, the most maybe emotional record because of the fact that it maybe never got to be made almost.
Leads me to my next question. To me, Symbol of Salvation offers incredible amount of spirituality. Do you agree with that assumption?
I think it's a record that shows certainly a lot of persevering, and that shows the band just not wanting to give up. And there was times when we almost did. Obviously, when Dave died, it was kind of hard to pick up the pieces immediately, but we kind of regrouped as the family that we are, because that's what Armored Saint is. So it's always been that. It goes back to our childhood. So we just had to kind of refocus and know that Dave would have wanted us to make this record.
How did the album do initially when it was released back in 1991?
I think it did pretty well. I think people were excited about the same record based on all the past experiences and certainly knowing that Dave died, and that we kind of regrouped and still put it out. Metal Blade was very supportive of the band at the time, but I think maybe the band itself had too high of expectations, because we thought we had this amazing record. Dave Jordan produced it. He was a hot producer at the time, and maybe we just had kind of a little delusional feelings about what it was going to do. You know, we've always been a pretty humble band, and I think that we remain that way, but maybe during that time, based on everything we went through, we thought it was going to just blow up, and then it didn't, and that was probably a little harsh reality for everybody, another one, and I think it created a little bit of tension in the band. So when we actually disbanded, it might have been for the best.
Also around that time, the musical tastes changed a lot with grunge coming in and
Sure.
really pushing out a lot of the classic rock to the side. And
Right. Yeah, I mean, there was a changing of the sound and the scene, and it was all for the better. I mean, Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam, they were amazing bands, you know, that needed recognition. So it was time for a change, you know, the hair metal was out, and, you know, MTV was changing their format, and, you know, music was evolving.
now you mentioned Dave Jordan. What was it like to work with him?
I love Dave. He's great. He's a kind of a zany guy, very dry personality, real creative. Made some amazing records. His legacy speaks for itself. I love Dave. You know, I made back-to-back records with him, Symbol of Salvation and then Sound of White Noise. So I enjoyed working with him. Also Brian Karlstrom, who's the engineer, who's unfortunately no longer with us. It was just always a really cool environment.
Now the band did tour briefly for the album back in the 1990s. How did the tour do? You were with
Not too good.
Last Crack, I believe.
Not too good, to be honest. We toured with Rat Child America and Last Crack. We were in a van. We had like 10 guys in a van because it was the band and the crew. We're driving with a trailer, probably through the Rockies, driving too recklessly. Surprised we didn't die, honestly. No, it wasn't a good time. There was a lot of turmoil in the band. There was turmoil with the crew. The crew was creating like a mutiny, and it wasn't a good time.
Yeah. And
It was
it's
one
funny,
of my worst tours ever, actually.
it's funny you mention this because it was actually mentioned to me a lot that during that time the feeling within the band was miserable towards the end. And then eventually you split up. So what was the final thing that caused the split?
Well, me joining Anthrax, that was probably the final thing. I mean, we probably would have kept going, but there certainly was some tension.
In 2003, Symbol of Salvation was released as a deluxe edition, which I have here. Want to show it?
For like Vanna White.
Yes, and care to comment how this came about and what's in it?
Well, we released all the demos that we originally did. We did them all in 4-track, like a Fostex 4-track. It's very outdated now, but that's how we recorded all the demos in. So we thought it would be a cool idea to do an interview with Brian Slagle and then talk about all the demos and talk about the songs and release both the record and the demos because all the demos contain Dave. So that was real fun.
Finally, what do you think makes Symbol of Salvation so special?
I think, again, it's a record that almost didn't happen because we lost our main guitar player. We were pretty despondent. The sound was changing. The world was changing. But we had all these songs, so to not put them out would have been a big mistake, and we knew that, and so we regrouped and we did it, and I think that you can feel that on this album. And you'll feel it live tonight.
Thank you.